What's up, everyone? Welcome to our Thursday night pregame show for week 16. Tara Roberts here with Adam Ronas. Adam and I are taking your questions live in the Fantasy Alarm Discord, previewing tonight's game between the San Francisco 49ers and the Tennessee Titans. Surprisingly, possibly a little bit better than we would have thought maybe a couple of weeks ago. These teams have been kind of pulling through, holding on strong here. So it is a game that matters, and that's what counts. And fantasy football is still going strong. Unfortunately, this is our last Thursday night game of the year. Thursday nights are coming to an end. So this means that it's our last Thursday night pregame show. So everyone, all that means is just hit us with as many questions as possible tonight. As always, go into the Fantasy Alarm Discord, the DFS Alarm Discord as well. Go into the live stream Q&A section, and we will be taking your questions live throughout the show. And of course, don't worry. This is the end of the Thursday night pregame show, but it is not the end of us. You can catch us all over the place with Fantasy Alarm. Still a ton of content to come, shows across the board, lives, everywhere, guys. So please make sure that you are following us on all of Fantasy Alarm's content so that you don't miss out as we close out the season and continue to move forward. Now I'm going to get to maybe the, maybe positive or negative. It depends on how it went for you, Adam. I am going to ask, and I know it's a negative response for me, but I have to ask how your fantasy week went with the first round of the playoffs. Was it a positive experience for you with all the madness that went on? Did you come out on top? Did you have some losses? What was the end result there?
Week 5 was catastrophic. It was a disaster. I had 3 playoff matchups, failed to score 100 points in any of them. I had one league where the week before was the first round. I had over 200 points. I don't even know where I finished, 80 something. I had Tom Brady get less than 5. So sometimes there's nothing you can do. I had 2 teams on bye, thank goodness. One of them was Travis Kelce with his 40 plus points, and now I don't know if he's going to play this week. So look, we're all going through it. But yeah, last week was absolutely a rough week. Maybe one of the worst playoff weeks I've ever experienced in my fantasy career. And I kind of knew it from the jump after the first day, going back to the Thursday game. So there's nothing you could do. And it's more chaotic now because of the COVID-19 protocols and players being ruled out every 10 minutes. But yeah, it was a rough week for me.
Yeah, this was wild. I've never experienced this before. Teams that you thought were extremely strong ended up giving you absolutely nothing. You mentioned the less than 100 points. I had one that was so painful. And Howard actually literally annihilated me.
He told me to ask you how that went, but I wasn't going to do that because you brought it up. So, but yeah.
Yeah, I'll bring it up. It was it was painful. It really was. I was let down by a couple other teams too. Like you, I was lucky to have some week 1 or some round 1 buys. So thankfully, with the Travis Kelce team as well. So I got lucky on that end. But yeah, man, I had never seen. I think that was the lowest point total that I had ever had in the entire season. My team fell apart. Took a nosedive in the worst way possible. So, yeah.
Look, it happened to a lot of people. There were so many players that just did not perform. And, yeah, there were some big performances like Kelce, Mark Andrews, but very few of them. And if you had those big performances and if you were desperate and had to go to the waiver wire and pick up some of these, running backs, I can't imagine many people started Duke Johnson. But if you did, you got fortunate. But yeah, the quarterback performances, Tom Brady getting shut out. Could you imagine someone going into the Sunday night game going, oh, I only need 6 points from Tom Brady. It's an easy win. You didn't get it, right?
Crazy.
So that's why you never know what could happen. And that's why I've always said it every year, and especially this year, we went through the season. There were injuries. I said, look, this is going to happen to every team. Just keep fighting, get in the playoffs, and you never know. And I'm telling you, there's going to be a lot of 6th and 5th seeded teams that win championships this year because of all the chaos that we've had to go through. And a lot of good teams are going to get knocked out. I saw some teams that were loaded that scored 70, 80 points because Jamar Chase and, all these top players just did not perform. So it's a wild year, and we're here to help you try and get through it because we're all dealing with the chaos right now.
Yes, you mentioned Duke Johnson. It's kind of, I said, we might go with a new strategy next season. Handcuff your handcuffs because, oh my gosh, we recommend a lot, if there's some shaky guys on your roster, it's not worthy, or then they're not worthy of a roster spot, go ahead and let them go and pick up handcuffs because you never know what will happen. And I want you to help me out on a question. For my team, I went on a handcuffing spree over the past few weeks, and it has turned out to be kind of positive on this team because I've got Eckler and Elijah Mitchell, and I've got Justin Jackson, Rojo, Alexander Madison, Rashad Penny. So I've got a bunch of different directions I could go to fill in those two spots that unfortunately I'm not trusting that Eckler's going to be there. So I got to prepare for that too. I've already nixed Penny from the conversation, but between Justin Jackson, Rojo, and Alexander Madison, which two backs should I go with?
Yeah, I think it's Jones and Madison for me. I have them ranked the highest. Look, Jones is averaging 4.7 yards per carry this year. When he's gotten full workload in his career, he's finished, I think, as a top 15 running back most of the time. It's a good matchup. The Panthers have allowed 4 rushing touchdowns in their last 3 games, and they might run a little bit more, too, with some of the wide receiver issues. Mike Evans has yet to practice. We expect Antonio Brown to return. Brashard Perriman should be off the COVID-19 list, and they got Gronk, so they still have a lot of weapons. But I would go with Jones, and I think Madison, I know it's not the ideal matchup against the Rams, but still, we know Minnesota loves to run the football.
Yeah.
They're getting a little healthier. Madison's another player whenever he's got the opportunity to start his thrive. Now, 2 of those starts this year came against Detroit. But, yeah, I would start those 2 guys. And you said the third one was what, Justin Jackson?
Yep, Justin Jackson.
Yeah, I mean, I have him lower. I mean, right now, I do not have Eckler in the rankings on Fantasy Alarm. He was on a show on Yahoo with Liz Loza, and basically said he was still dealing with symptoms, and it sounded like he wasn't going to play. I think he advised Dawson Knox, was it, to pick up Justin Jackson? So
yes, I saw that.
Yeah, so that doesn't sound good. So I took Eckler out of the rankings, put in Justin Jackson in the RB2 range. Certainly a solid play. Houston is horrible against the run, but, they could mix in Josh Kelly a little bit. I still think Jackson is the top option there. We saw him actually his best game in a while last week when he got some opportunities. But I think for me, it's Madison and Jones.
I think that makes sense too. I love how we get the inside scoop directly from Austin Eckler on a weekly basis.
Yeah, I mean, look, and now we're crossing our fingers. That's the other thing too. That's the most difficult part right now is we don't know with most of these players coming off the COVID-19 list what kind of symptoms, how severe it was. We heard murmurs. Amari Cooper was, coughing a little bit. Okay, so that gave us an alert, and I think it was a Thursday night game. Yeah, it was a Thursday night game against the Saints.
Yes.
I don't know if we were together. No, I think Cooper was in that week. And we saw that. We said, all right, we got to back off Cooper now. And the news came late in the live stream, and I took Cooper out of my lineups. He looked fine, but he didn't play a full complement of snaps. We had no idea about Myles Gaskin last week. He missed more than a week, and I cannot blame people that used him. Then we find out, well, he didn't practice much. We're not going to use him. Okay, well, that led to this past week. A lot of questions. I was doing a Fantasy Alarm show on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio. People calling up Henderson and Michelle. Said Sony Michel. Henderson had not played since November 28th. Yeah. He had injuries and was on the COVID-19 list. So we have to do a little bit more digging. But some of these situations we're not going to know. And that's the complicated part here is these guys coming off the COVID-19 list. We don't know. Did they have symptoms? How much practice did they miss? What kind of physical shape they're in? So that's making it more complicated. But yeah, it's very difficult right now trying to make these decisions. And then, we got Thursday night games. A lot of people are like, well, play your players in the Thursday night games because you don't know what's going to happen Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. I think if it's close, I don't think you want to go, well, I got this guy at RB16. I don't know if he's going to play. He's playing tonight. Do I play this RB42? I'm not going to go that far, but it does make it more complicated, because Deonta Foreman's playing tonight. It's not a great matchup. It's a short week. He had an ankle issue. There's still Hilliard in the mix and McNichols. I really don't want to play him tonight if I don't have to, but what if you have Antonio Gibson and it doesn't look good? So there's so many complications right now that we're dealing with.
Yeah, I'm on your end a little bit more because I know people are saying, start the ones playing now, start the ones playing now. And I had that theory last week, which led me to Ramondre Stevenson. Which,
I don't think that was a mistake. And I started Stevenson in multiple leagues. The game script got away. Like, that's the thing, and fantasy players need to understand that. Like, I don't have any regret with that decision. It didn't work out, but we knew Stevenson was going to get most of the touches. Yes, Brandon Bolden was involved in the passing game, but that game script fell away from them so quickly. So, like, to me, that's not a bad decision. It's one that I live with. It sucked. It didn't work out, and I move on. There's a difference between making a bad decision where you know you messed up. I don't like how do you not play Stevenson last week, right?
Yeah,
He loves to run the football. You expect 15 to 20 touches, more so on the ground. It just trust me, it sucks because it ended my season too. 5 points.
Exactly. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But I don't think that was a bad decision, and that's one you can't lose sleep over.
Oh, it's tough. It really is.
Tough
it was like a 3-point loss. A 3-point loss.
That's even worse. Yeah, because all you need was one touchdown and you're good.
Yeah, so close. But yeah, and you mentioned the whole Sony Michel and Darrell Henderson, and then Duke Johnson and Myles Gaskin, and how we don't know what to expect with these players coming off COVID. But it's interesting because we've got split situations where now we don't technically know what to expect with them having a full healthy week moving forward and how the splits will work out in that situation. So, can we expect again to see the Lions bulk of the share going towards Sony Michel, or will Darrell Henderson, now with a week under him, be able to, get back to more of an even split? Does he take a little bit of a lead there? Then we've got, Duke Johnson, who looked good, man. He looked good. Promoted, and from this point forward, we know he's going to get some work in with Myles Gaskin. It makes it such a weird situation trying to evaluate. Maybe less weird for that Miami situation because you're probably not leaning towards that direction, but a lot of people are leaning towards Sony Michel and maybe Darrell Henderson. And we can go ahead and talk about, now it doesn't have a fantasy effect, but I did want to point out that Cam Akers is returning from IR as well. So
yeah, I don't think he plays though in the fantasy playoffs.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's more so for their postseason hopes.
Yeah.
There's no way he plays this week or next week, in my opinion. So, but I think the Miami backs, you don't play them. I don't think you can mess around because they could go back to Gaskin. It could be a split. Now they are facing the Saints, who are dealing with a lot of COVID-19 issues. It is a very good defense, but that was the Jets last week. Okay, everyone runs over the Jets. So yes. I would not trust Duke Johnson or Gaskin. I have them ranked outside my top 30 running backs. Michel and Darrell Henderson's very tricky. Again, I don't feel good about either. I think Sony Michel probably is the lead back. I know McVay made comments. They like his power running, and he referred to how he looked in New England the year they won the Super Bowl down the stretch. So it seems like he kind of wants that element in the offense, but I think it's hard to have confidence in him. So yeah, that's a tough situation. I mean, look, you mentioned some of the guys off the top. Madison, boom, catapults up to the top. Ronald Jones up to the top. Justin Jackson, if Eckler's out. Those situations to me there's more clarity there than some of these split backfields. And I know it's crazy because we're in week 16. It's a championship week or semifinals, and we're playing these guys, but we've seen history, and that happens. Sometimes who's getting the workload? Okay, I'm going to roll with these guys, but yeah, these backfields where there's not a lot of clarity, it's tough because, the Henderson Michel is definitely tough. Definitely. Yeah. But I think it's like 60-40 in favor of Michel.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I do. It's tough. You got to roll with it. But yeah, we'll jump into it. Maybe we'll have some questions about that as we move forward because, guys, again, we are taking your questions live from the Fantasy Alarm Discord. I saw a couple of questions in there in the live stream Q&A section already. So awesome. Thank you very much. If you've got any questions, again, be sure to put them in there. We'll be taking them as we kind of go through again. It's been crazy. The past couple of weeks have been absolutely insane. So we're going to try and keep you up to date. We've got a lot to cover. We'll walk through everything and we'll take your questions as we're moving forward through that. So again, guys, before we kick off the show, I did want to point out that we have a holiday package now with Fantasy Alarm. You can get all sports, get all access, pay just once. And it's a great gift for your fantasy football nut. Get coverage of 12 sports with over 11,000 written articles, plus 100 and more customizable tools, including League Sync and a lineup generator, with over 200 individual settings, plus access to the best family in fantasy sports, anchored by Howard Bendard, who, again, beat me in our serious league, but in our premium Discord as well. So to access that, go to fantasyalarm.com/holiday NFL to get that package. And you know what? Let's go ahead and do one more. We'll do a playoff package as well. With only 3 regular seasons left, we are going to go ahead and do a playoff package, 5 playoff weeks, Fantasy Alarm is offering a special playoff pricing of $29.70 on the NFL DFS Playbook Pro package. You will get deep analysis of all NFL main slates and marquee showdowns as well. You will get watch lists, playbooks, position coaches, previews and recaps, fantasy style, and access to analysts for direct questions in our premium Discord. Again, this is all available for just $29.70 throughout all the way to the Super Bowl. So go to fantasyalarm.com/getNFL and use the promo code playoffs to go ahead and get that and the other package as well. Fantastic deals, guys. So again, let's go ahead and dive into the hot topics from around the league. And we've got a ton, man. I thought I would start us up right off the top with the one Tampa Bay injuries that probably affects us most fantasy managers in some way, shape, or form, because it's hard not to roster one of them. You mentioned Tom Brady in that very strange game that you would not expect out of Tom Brady. They have his number, really. Apparently, they have his number over there. So maybe a little bounce back game for Brady this week. But who will he be bouncing back with? Unfortunately, we mentioned Rojo, so he won't be bouncing back with Fournette, who suffered an injury. We talked about him, but, maybe go into it again. Rojo, ranking and confidence level right there with him as he steps into Rojo lead back, what we've all been waiting. It feels like we've been waiting forever, and he's young. How have we been waiting that long for this opportunity? But we've got Ronald Jones as the lead back. How good are we feeling about it?
I think you got to feel pretty good based on this offense. Now, he might not be heavily involved in the passing game, but he's going to get most of that workload. Maybe they mix in Keyshawn Vaughn a little bit on passing downs, but got to figure, they're big favorites. We'll see if they're able to play from ahead, but I do think they probably want to run the football a little bit more. Yeah. So, yeah, especially if you went to the waiver wire this week to pick him up, I think he's RB1.
Yeah, for sure. And then, they're going to want to run the ball, but I can't fathom that Tom Brady doesn't want to, redeem himself a little bit after that kind of performance. So, unfortunately, we've got he'll be without Godwin. Chris Godwin gone for the year. We've got Mike Evans likely out as well, week to week. So the wide receiver pivots, obviously the big one. We're getting Antonio Brown back. It was funny. We were kind of getting Bruce Arians dancing around that question of whether or not Antonio Brown would be returning to the team. And immediately after that game was over and we saw those wide receivers going out, it was like, yep, he's back. It's best for the team. Yeah, it is best for the team. So Antonio Brown will be back. And who's going to step up with him? How are you feeling about Tyler Johnson as a little streaming option there?
Yeah, there's probably better options. He's probably going to play the slot, but I don't know if I really want to play him or Brashad Perriman unless I'm in a really deep league and desperate. I think if Brown is active, which I expect him to be, we've seen him perform as a wide receiver one. Brady has a great comfort level with him. And Gronkowski obviously will be heavily involved. So those would be the two I focus on more. I think it could be divided between Perriman and Tyler Johnson, and they kind of hurt each other. So I really be starting Brown, Gronk, and Ronald Jones.
I think Perriman's on the COVID list.
Yeah, I think I don't know if they
did he get activated?
He could be back, yeah.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And then not fantasy relevant at all, but I have to mention it. Le'Veon Bell to the Bucs. It's not going to be usable, but hey, they've got a little reunion going on down there. Tom Brady reuniting everyone. Very special. But moving on to another, let's run through some more big COVID names that are out this week. We talked about it a little bit, but the one that I feel is probably the biggest, Alvin Cook. Oh, I know that is a killer to a lot of people. Unfortunately, he will be out. Alexander Mattison clearly stepping in. I don't think we have time to discuss about that because it's, one of the situations where we know for sure exactly what we're pivoting to when it comes to Alexander Mattison, the amount of carries that he'll get, the volume and usage. So again, that's the big one there. Anything to add on Mattison?
Pretty much you're playing him again. Rams solid defense, but you're playing Mattison. We've seen it. They'll give him a huge workload. He stepped in usually when Dalvin Cook is out and performed pretty well. So I know I have Mattison in a league where I don't have Dalvin Cook, so kind of caught a break there and easy plug and play, put Mattison in. So I'm playing him.
Yeah. And then we talked about Austin Eckler again, but we're, we've got Justin Jackson, who will probably get the majority of the workload there. We do have Josh Kelly, who could be involved as well, but the pivot there is probably going to be Justin Jackson. And then Kansas City, we talked about that a little bit. They've got the COVID issues over there that aggressively affect, and I don't really think there's a way to pivot from those, unfortunately, within Kansas City, because there's hard to get somebody that's going to replace a Travis Kelce or a Tyreek Hill. I think the best we can do right there is hope for them to come off the COVID list. And if not, you gotta pivot somewhere else to another team that's maybe got someone else stepping in.
Yeah, I think what we try to do now is pray and hope that Travis Kelce or Tyreek Hill or both are activated before the game. But each day that goes by, it gets tougher. So I know I have Kelce in a semifinal matchup and obviously desperately want him to play. So just kind of hoping for some good news on Friday or Saturday.
For sure. And then this one, I'm not sure how many people are starting Baker Mayfield. Maybe you are in a super flex league, but
if you are, you definitely are still not playing this week. There's no question about it.
If that's your streamer, we've got problems. But Cleveland could be back at full force, which, full force team does help Nick Chubb. We've got Jarvis Landry as well that should be active. Both Baker and Jarvis Landry should be activated. I think Austin Hooper did come off, which again makes that tight end position kind of unusable. But yeah, we've got that news, so just wanted to point that one out. And then New Orleans, Taysom Hill, who has been, he's been fantasy relevant as a QB1 in good matchups. And then we've got Trevor Siemian as well, who is down with COVID. And so I guess we're getting Ian Book, who is the likely starter down there in New Orleans. It'll be interesting to see. Obviously, that's not a pivot for us in any way, shape, or form. But again, I think everything regarding the New Orleans quarterback position always goes back to how does this affect Alvin Kamara?
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously not ideal. I mean, you hope that he checks down a lot. I mean, I think you're still playing him if you're this far because the volume's going to be there. It's not a great matchup, but yeah, that's pretty much the only player I think that you can play on the Saints this week. I mean, obviously they're dealing with a lot of COVID-19 issues, and obviously that line is flipped. I think the Saints were 3.5 point favorites. Now Miami is favored 1.5 on the road.
Yeah. Does this affect how you view Miami with the Saints having all these COVID issues? Are you leaning more towards? We've been using Tua as a nice streaming option here and there. Last week was not fantastic, but it wasn't a total bust. Obviously, we've got Jalen Waddle that's coming back. Should be interesting because we talked about players returning off of COVID, but it is Jalen Waddle. You are playing him. And beyond that, we've got Devontae Parker as well, who did, step in very admirably in the absence of Waddle and Mike Gesicki. So are you looking at this situation as a bump up for targeting these Miami players?
No, I think that defense is still good, even though they're missing players. I think Waddle is a guy, if he's activated. I don't know. Has he officially been activated yet? I think he has.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, so you can look at him. He's going to get a lot of targets. Parker, maybe not as much, especially since he could see some Lattimore. Gesicki is, fine. But yeah, it's not an ideal situation. I think the game total, if I'm not mistaken, I think it's 37, which is insane.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not a great scenario. I don't want to play Tua. This could be a very, very ugly game.
For sure. And then, guys, we have plenty of more news to cover. That covers the big COVID news, although there's obviously more teams that are very, widely affected. But from a fantasy perspective, those are the big ones for us. And before we jump on to more news, I'm going to jump over here into Discord, guys, and ask a few questions. The first one I see from Darth Vader, which is appropriate. Are we starting or fading A.J. Brown tonight?
I think it depends on who you have, but I think it's okay to play him. I know I'm helping a friend in a playoff league, and he has A.J. Brown. I'm putting him in the lineup. There were reports that he should be good to go, and based on depending on conditioning, should play full complement of snaps. The thing with A.J. Brown is he is so good, man. He can make your game on one play. He can, a 60-yard touchdown, a 60-yard. So he doesn't need huge volume to come through. Yes, it's always risky, a player coming off injury, but it's a real big boost. I mean, Julio Jones is playing too, which I'm surprised. No way would I play. I would never play Julio Jones because he's going to lose this game with a hamstring injury after he's done it every time. So, but it definitely helps the Titans offense. Now they are missing 3 offensive linemen. So it's a concern, especially with that San Francisco pass rush. and Nick Bosa. But San Francisco is weaker against the pass than the run. So yeah, I think I have, A.J. Brown, low end wide receiver too. Depends on your alternatives. There's definitely a little bit of risk, but at the same time, there is a huge ceiling for A.J. Brown. So it really depends on who you have. You don't have to start him, but I think most situations I'll probably take the chance and roll him out.
Yeah, now we've got a question with A.J. Brown. So we can do a little comparison here. Need 2 in PPR from this grouping. A.J. Brown, A.J. Dillon, CEH, and Miles Sanders.
Yeah, I play Brown in that situation, and then you have to wait. Now, Miles Sanders is on the injury report with a quad issue, so keep that in mind. I mean, he looked really good last week. I know Jalen Hurts stole the touchdowns, but I think against the Giants, you could play Sanders. So what I would do is play Brown now and then kind of wait for the second one.
Yeah. And then from that one, would you be going between Miles Sanders and CEH?
Yeah, I lean Sanders right now.
Yeah.
But we got to make sure that he plays.
Yeah. All right. And then let's do one more. Need a wide receiver and a flex in full PPR between A.J. Brown, Gabriel Davis, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Michael Carter, and Justin Jackson.
So needs 2 there, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to play Brown and then St. Brown. Although, you know what? Wait. Jazz. I'm going to play Brown, and then I'm going to wait to see what happens with Eckler and Justin Jackson. You might have to play Jazz. Look, St. Brown has been phenomenal. It's hard to bench him at this point. But if you're going to get a running back against the Texans that could get 15 touches, you're probably going to have to go Jackson. So play Brown tonight, and then let's see what happens with Jackson and St. Brown.
Yeah, that's tough. Yeah.
Do you have hesitation about playing A.J. Brown?
Yeah, and it's not a hesitation about playing A.J. Brown in general, but when I look at this group and feeling like I'm getting the feeling Austin Eckler is not going, I might take the risk there with Justin Jackson in the flex and then St. Brown as the wide receiver, just because, I don't know, maybe I'm just fangirling a little bit too much over Amon-Ra St. Brown, but I mean, he's just, when the volume has been fantastic. Although, you know what? Jared Goff is on the COVID list.
Yes, that's a good point that we have did not address. That would absolutely hurt him. So yes.
Yeah.
Again, see, this is why it's tough, man, where in a lot of situations, a situation like this, I'm looking to play A.J. Brown. Now, Cameron Wolf, who covers them, this is his tweet. Expect a full load for A.J. Brown tonight as long as his conditioning through the game goes well. He's looked good in practice and warm-ups. Titans offense desperately need him, and he's back, and that is absolutely true. It's good. I bumped up Ryan Tannehill in my rankings when I saw that Brown and Julio's back. Again, he's not a QB1, but certainly a better situation for Tannehill right now that he's got these weapons back.
Yeah, for sure. And then we'll do another, let's see, lost Taysom and need a fill-in. Jimmy G stacked with Debo. Tannehill stacked with AJ. Fields, Matt Ryan, or Huntley if Lamar is out.
Oh, see, this is tough because I want to say Huntley. I want to say Huntley. If Lamar's out, I'm playing Huntley. But the problem is you're going to have to wait, and now you're losing, 2 options from tonight, Jimmy G? Because I like Jimmy G the most. I mean, Lamar didn't practice again today, right?
Yeah, he didn't.
I might just take the shot. Wait, it was Jimmy G.
Tannehill.
You know what? I would wait. And if Huntley goes and Lamar's out, I'm playing him. If not, I go Fields. As bad as Fields has looked in some of these, I mean, this past week he wasn't great. He's been a QB1 as the last 4 weeks. Now that's a reflection on how bad the position has been. But
Fields has some kind of injury issue, right?
Yeah, he had.
I
think an ankle. He did not practice today. Look, if you want to be very safe, play Jimmy G tonight. If it was me, I'd probably wait, hope Huntley goes, play him, and if not, Fields.
Yeah, I think that makes the most sense. All right, and then one more question before we jump right back into the news. All right, I am wondering if I should start A.J. Brown tonight from this grouping. It is a lineup of 2 wide receivers, 2 running backs, and 2 flex. And we have, let's see, looks like Adams, Deontay Johnson, Van Jefferson, Eckler, Justin Jackson, David Montgomery, Javonte Williams, Alexander Madison, CEH. Do I start Brown or keep him on the bench?
No, you got too many options there.
Yeah.
Devontae Adams obviously has got to be in. You got Madison. Yeah, I think in that situation you don't have to.
Yeah.
Because you have way safer options.
I agree. All right, guys, let us jump back into the news if I can get my computer to keep up and switch me back. All right, so jumping back into the news, guys. I don't know how much this aggressively affects any of us because at this point, I have zero confidence playing any Broncos wide receiver. But Teddy Bridgewater is out, and Drew Lock, it's Drew Lock's season. I don't know how much that means for us, but the wide receivers in Denver, does this adjust anything for them for you?
No,
Yeah.
you can't play any of these guys at all. No way. I mean, I love Jerry Jeudy, but how can you play him? Got a 0 last week.
Painful.
Drew Lock is not any better. I mean, he will take more chances, but there's no way. I mean, as bad as his Raiders defense is, I mean, they're probably going to run a ton with Gordon and Javonte Williams. So you can't play any Broncos wide receiver. I mean, this is a critical week, and you could get a 5 points from any of them. So there's no way you can have them in your top 40. There's no way.
Yeah. I'm sure there's even better pivots on waivers right now for you to pick up that will actually have realistic upside. There's just none there, unfortunately. Next, another one that's not super fantasy relevant, but it's fun to talk about because, it's Cam Newton. We always talk about that. Cam, he was not actually bad last week. But unfortunately, we did get confirmation that while he will be starting, we've got this random, very unclear, ominous message that Darnold will factor in at some point. We don't know if that's at some point in the game. We don't know if that's at some point in the season. But I'm not sure that we were really going back over to Cam in such a risky situation. But any effects here with the pass catchers? I think DJ Moore is the only one that we're sitting there and depending on.
Problem with Moore, he has not practiced this week. So dealing with a hamstring issue, so there's a chance he doesn't play. Be prepared for that. So, I mean, there's nothing you really want to do in Carolina right now. It's hard to play anyone, and I would expect the Buccaneers defense to play very well this week. I mean, they did last week, but they're going to be pretty fired up after that loss last week. So, if DJ Moore plays, I'm probably playing him. But, I mean, he's more in the wide receiver 3 discussion now. He just has not had a big game in weeks, and it's because of the quarterback situation. It's not on DJ Moore.
Yeah. And then moving on to one that is definitely more fantasy relevant, the Detroit running backs are potentially back in action. We know for sure that Jamal Williams has been activated off the COVID list. Again, we talked about, conditioning and whatnot and the usage, which was one of the reasons why, even if Jamal Williams was activated, if you needed to use Craig Reynolds, I was not really opposed to it given the matchup and the thought process that I don't think that it would be a situation where Jamal Williams would be on a full workload. But we do have DeAndre Swift coming through potentially to come back. So we've got a lot of running backs in this situation. Any takeaways from this other than the fact that we really just have to wait it out and see what's going to happen with us?
Yeah, I mean, this is a tough situation. I mean, Swift was limited for the second straight day. There's no lock that he comes back. So, right now it's a situation I kind of want to avoid until we get some clarity.
Yeah. And then we'll move on to some notable injuries. We talked about Lamar Jackson, a very notable injury at that. But we've got a clear pivot option if you were able to grab Huntley. He's someone that you can definitely turn to in the event that Lamar Jackson is out and, he's not practicing. So unfortunately, it's looking like it's trending in that direction. How confident are you with Huntley? Where do you have him ranked?
I don't have him ranked now because I have Lamar in there, so I'm going to wait. But, I mean, I would have no problem starting him. He gives you that high floor with the rushing ability. He's looked good the last 2 weeks, 2 passing, 2 rushing last week. Bengals defense has been decent, but, I mean, he's played well, showing confidence. And, again, anytime you have that running quarterback with that high floor, so I'm going to play him. If I'm struggling at quarterback, I'm going to play him. So I'll probably have him ranked. I might have him ranked as a QB1 if he's officially ruled in. Yeah,
I think that makes sense. And then we've got Elijah Mitchell that is out. We got that news earlier in the week that his knee had taken a turn for the better, potentially for him to be able to play. But now he's officially out, which probably maybe works out better from a fantasy perspective because if Elijah Mitchell is in, you have to play him in that situation, even if he might have been a little bit potentially limited. But with Elijah Mitchell out, we've got Jeff Wilson, who, hey, he's came back and look a little more like the Jeff Wilson that we saw last year. So are we rolling with the theory that Jeff Wilson is now healthy and he is where do you have him?
Low RB2. Again, I don't think he's a must play. You still have Deebo Samuel getting some carries, and it was a better matchup last week for Wilson. That's why. He's very volume dependent, and the Titans have actually allowed the fewest fantasy points to running backs. So it's not a great matchup. I mean, I know Pittsburgh has their offensive issues, but Najee Harris had 12 carries for 18 yards last week. We saw this year Jonathan Taylor has gone against him twice. 16 carries, 70 yards for a touchdown, and 10 carries, 64 yards. Now, that was week 3 when the Colts were still stupid and giving touches to Naeem Hines. Obviously, things have changed drastically since then. But, I mean, Taylor, 2 games, doesn't have 100 yards. There's only been one running back to go over 100 yards against them this year. That was James Robinson in week 5. So it's difficult to run on them. And if the 49ers are smart, they'll probably go more towards the pass. Obviously, they'll mix in Deebo. So, yeah, I mean, Wilson, RB2, but I don't expect what you got last week. He's got to score a touchdown. He's not involved heavily in the passing game. So if he doesn't score a touchdown for you, he's probably not going to have a good week.
Yeah. And then we've got a couple here. I'm not sure there's too much to discuss with either one of these. Rondale Moore, game time decision. Ramondre Stevenson is missing practice with an illness, not a COVID illness, just a general illness. And then Damian Harris is limited. But again, those are kind of things that you have to wait out and see with Ramondre Stevenson and Damian Harris to kind of see whether or not you would want to play them. Now, let's maybe do a scenario. If they are both active, are you willing to play either one of them this week?
It's risky. I would probably lean towards Harris, but it's not the ideal situation because it'll probably be a split, and then they'll mix Bolden in on the passing downs, and it's just that. Now we're back to the old Patriots way where we can't trust any running back.
Yeah. And then we've got Washington. Gibson not practicing. Heineke did clear COVID protocol, so he will be coming back. This Washington team, it's not been looking pretty good. Again, we saw one big catch from Terry McLaurin, not much outside of that. So, given the situation, are there any must starts in if Heineke is coming back? Are you pivoting elsewhere?
Yeah, I don't think McLaurin's a must start anymore. I mean, the floor has been extremely low, even with Heineke quarterback, and the Cowboys defense has played very well. So McLaurin's like, wide receiver 3 territory. You don't have to play him. I mean, you're probably going to play St. Brown over him, which sounds crazy, but he's pretty. Unlike going back to what you said, depends on the status of Jared Goff, so that could change things. But you can't feel good about McLaurin right now. Even Ricky Seals-Jones,
it's like, it's like
there's not much you can really feel good about on Washington. And keep an eye on Gibson because they kind of mentioned the toe injury is similar to last year. Sounds like he might not play. That game's Sunday night, so Jared Patterson would be the guy to step in. But again, this Cowboys defense is just playing at a really high level right now.
Yeah, it's tough to wait that out and try and go with that option when you've got so many other great options available off waivers and handcuffs as well. And then let's do one more interesting one. Again, this one's not super fantasy relevant, but it could be. We've got Nelson Aguilar, who is in concussion protocol, Kendrick Bourne, who is on the COVID list, and that leaves us with Jacoby Myers. Does this weird situation make Jacoby Myers someone who you would actually want to flex?
No. I mean, they're going to obviously have to pass more than they did the first time against Buffalo in that weather game when they had 3. But, I mean, Jacoby Myers to me is like, borderline top 40 in PPR. There's just better options out there. The floor is pretty low.
Yeah. And then jumping back for a couple of questions here in Discord, which of these 4 do I play? Let's see. It would be Eckler so we've got a either or situation with Eckler or Justin Jackson. So count that as 1. So Eckler, Justin Jackson, Madison, David Montgomery, CEH, or Javonte Williams, half PPR.
How many?
Just let's see. I'm guessing. Doesn't say how many. I'm going to guess 2.
Yeah, I mean, it would be Madison and probably Montgomery. I mean, if
Yeah,
Eckler goes, you're playing him, but it doesn't sound like he will go.
yeah. I think Madison and Montgomery makes sense. And which defense between the Eagles, Miami, and Seattle?
Eagles. You're looking at either Jake Fromm or Glennon. That offense is it's terrible right now. So Eagles.
Yeah, I would agree with that. All right, jumping back to the news, guys. James Conner, a game time decision. That one's kind of interesting. We didn't really see. Now, granted, the matchup wasn't a fantastic situation last week, but we didn't really see much in terms of production from Chase Edmonds to the point where if James Conner doesn't play, to what level are you confident in playing Chase Edmonds?
It doesn't mean much, but Connor said he is playing and he's gonna, fight through the pain. So that could change. The good thing is this game is Saturday on Christmas, so you'll know early and you'll be able to pivot to a bunch of options. Connor, if he is active, is still the preferred play because he's getting the goal line carries and the touchdowns. You got to think Arizona bounces back. I mean, I don't know what the hell happened in Detroit. They just didn't show
Yeah.
up. That was certainly one of the biggest upsets we've seen this year. So it's still Connor gets the slight edge because he gets the goal line carries, good chance to score. And Edmonds is more, an RB3 in PPR. But if Connor's out, then yeah, Edmonds moves up to the RB2.
Yeah. And then Emmanuel Sanders is practicing, but we do know that Cole Beasley will be out. So I kind of wanted to question around Gabe Davis and the confidence level that you're feeling with him. He has been fantastic if you actually look at the numbers in terms of his red zone usage. I mean, he's pretty much, there's certain guys, we talked about Jacoby Myers is someone who you're almost guaranteed to not get a touchdown out of. Where you turn over to Gabe Davis, you're almost guaranteed to get a touchdown out of him at this point. Is he someone that you're looking to stream this week?
Yeah, I mean, he should have been picked up last week, but I think you could certainly
Yeah.
look at him. He's a wide receiver 3. You got to figure Stephon Diggs is going to get J.C. Jackson, so that should, benefit Davis. Even if Sanders plays, I have to think that Buffalo realizes, hey, we got to get the ball in the hands of Davis more. So yeah, he's in wide receiver 3, and certainly if you have a Tyreek Hill that might not play, or some type of issue like that, or maybe you lost Godwin, yeah, Davis is in play. But he was probably picked up in most competitive leagues weeks ago or last week, but maybe in a couple he might still be out there.
Yeah, I think in maybe medium or shallow leagues, he was still very oddly available. I was kind of surprised at that. But yeah, he's someone that I was I really liked him a lot heading into the season. I underestimated the strength of Emmanuel Sanders and the grip that he would have on that position. So, it's very interesting. He's someone that I'm looking forward to seeing next year in particular. Moving on, not really something we can pivot from, but just something to mention. Pat Freiermuth and concussion. Keep that in mind that you probably need to go ahead and make sure that you have other options. It is his second concussion, unfortunately, so that doesn't really bode well for him coming back into it. So don't wait on that one. Just go ahead and move on. And then we've got Brandon Cooks COVID as well. Again, it's Houston. It's not much in terms of where else we're pivoting to, but I do want to ask you, do you think this is now Nico Collins' season? Now, it's maybe not Nico Collins. We're actually using him season, but is it his time to step up with Davis Mills?
It should be if Cooks is out. Mills has been pretty solid, but I again don't think you want to go there unless it's like a very deep league and there's not much available. But yeah, I mean he should command most of the targets if Cooks is out.
Yeah. All right, guys, and I think that kind of wraps it up for the news section. It was a ton. I did warn you that, again, we're at this point where everything that's coming through, I mean, we've just got so much that we can run through. But we'll go ahead and jump into the game preview. We talked a little bit about some of these guys, Elijah Mitchell in particular, who will be out. But, this is an interesting matchup between San Francisco and Tennessee. Both of these teams have really hung in an unexpected way. So we're looking at a competitive game. Tennessee lost Derrick Henry. So unfortunately, we thought at that point, there was going to be a hard pivot down for Tennessee. And somehow, even with pretty much zero receiving core, they were able to kind of stay in control over there. And we've got them sitting at a very strong 9-5. Then we've got San Francisco as well, who is very much so in playoff contention. So it'll be an interesting game. We've got two teams that match up very interestingly. And we've mentioned San Francisco. They're very strong against the run. Tennessee wants to run. They may not have the option to, aggressively rely on Foreman. We've got Hilliard and McNichols as well. And then we mentioned the pass and talking about Ryan Tannehill, A.J. Brown, Julio Jones. So, is this a game where Tennessee is going to try and stick to the run against San Francisco, or are we going to see a script where they maybe try and put a little bit more volume into Tannehill's hands?
I think they always want to run the football, so they'll probably try, but I think they may be forced to pass more. And I think with A.J. Brown and Julio Jones back, they might want to do that and try and get A.J. Brown going. So, it's tough with Foreman just because he's not involved heavily in passing downs, short week coming off the injury. So, he's outside my top. He's like right around RB25 for me. I know he's been good, but, we've had some situations where other running backs have popped up and kind of moved him down. So, and the 49ers have been really good against the run. They're weaker against the pass. You can pass on them. So you wonder if Tennessee sees that and says, all right, you know what, we need to pass the football a little bit more. I'm interested to see if they do that, but it's not an ideal matchup here for Foreman this week.
Yeah. And then we mentioned, kind of on the opposite end, Tennessee is strong against the run as well. San Francisco does want to run the ball, but they are more than willing to pass the ball because they have quite the pass-catching core right there with Kittle, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk. He didn't really come through last week, but he always is a possibility to have a good game. So, when you're looking at this offense, we talked about Jeff Wilson. Obviously, we're playing Kittle. Obviously, we're playing Deebo. Brandon Ayuk what are we thinking in terms of his usage here?
Yeah, I mean, it's always tricky with him. He's had some really good games recently, so I have him as a wide receiver 3. But I think, again, San Francisco is a team that should pass a little bit more here, too. And we've seen them do that a little bit. And I think they might, based on this matchup, especially, Wilson on a short week. He's had knee issues this year. We know they like to focus on one back. Again, Deebo Samuel will get some of his carries, but I think you could see them skew a little bit more to the pass, so they should. I mean, George Kittle's playing like an absolute animal right now. You can't stop him. I want the ball in his hands. I want the hands in Deebo and Ayuk. So they should. Whether they do that is a different story. But yeah, Ayuk's a wide receiver 3 territory for me this week.
Yeah, you mentioned Kittle. It's kind of interesting. I've been seeing with Kittle, with the not emergence of Mark Andrews, because Mark Andrews has always been there, but just the way he's been coming on this year is just incredibly strong. Kyle Pitts as well. I've been seeing a lot of debates in terms of how we're looking at these tight ends moving into next year. We've got Travis Kelce, who's, he's fantastic. He's, still tight end 1, but I think there's room for, guys to kind of slip in there to the conversation. So if you're looking at, these top 5 or so guys, assuming maybe TJ Hawkinson healthy as well, how are you looking at them next year?
We always know what the issue is with Kittle. It's health, right? Yeah. I mean, he just plays very physical blocking, and no one's surprised at what he's doing. The question is, can he stay healthy? And he's already endured injuries this year. But if you're going on talent, I mean, he's got to be possibly number 1. Kelce showed slight signs of slowing down, but then you saw what he did last week. But he will be a year older. So I think you might finally see people putting Kittle and Andrews ahead of Kelce.
Yeah, it's interesting. I agree with you. They've really pulled through and looked fantastic this season. All right, guys. I thought, we might jump into a little DFS as well. I've got the Yahoo pricing pulled up for DFS tonight to maybe just talk a little showdown action, because again, when you get these games where you've got a ton of talent, it makes it more competitive for you to have to make decisions versus those games where literally everyone is a viable option. But we've got obviously the guys at the top. We've got Deebo Samuel, $34, George Kittle, $32. Quarterbacks, they're looking pretty even here. Not a big price difference between Jimmy Garoppolo and Ryan Tannehill. Maybe if you were prioritizing a quarterback from a DFS perspective tonight in the showdown, who would you be more inclined to go with?
Probably Jimmy G. Again, the one thing for Tennessee that we do have to worry about is they're missing 3 offensive linemen, including Taylor Lewan and Saffold. So really tough. Which means Tannehill's going to have to get rid of the ball quicker. So I probably lean towards Jimmy G. He's played well lately. Now, again, he's not going to throw for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. Probably not. I mean, it's
Yeah.
possible, but a lot of weapons there. So I lean towards Jimmy G.
Yeah, I think that too. If you were maybe prioritizing stacking him with Debo or Kittle, um, either preference on those, they're very even in pricing.
I'm both, if I can.
Yeah, yeah.
Look, it's hard to go against Debo right now. He just scores every week. I know where it's kind of frustrating that his receiving numbers are down. I don't understand that. Like, they should be getting him more involved in the passing game. We saw the big numbers he put up this year, but yeah, it's tough to not play him.
Yeah. And then in terms of maybe some, and maybe some cheaper pricing guys, when you jump down, you get to Jeff Wilson, he's at $18, Dontrell Hilliard, 15, Foreman is 19. We've got Julio Jones, who is very discounted, obvious reasons there because the production has not been there, unfortunately, $15. So you do have some, guys where if you needed to go down a little bit and pivot upwards, we've got Jawan Jennings down there at $10. Could be a little bit interesting. It's a very bottom dollar play right there. But yeah, man, there's just some very interesting ways that you could go with this lineup as a whole.
Yeah, of the guys you mentioned that are cheap, I guess Jennings would be a guy. 11 targets over the last 2 games, 6 catches, 74 yards, and a touchdown. So, if he finds the end zone, then it'll pay off for you. So that would be someone to look at.
You mentioned the 49ers going with one running back. It's funny how they've pivoted towards that as, the season has gone on. We've always seen the 49ers as, they love to run. They're very run heavy. They're going to lead the league or be at the very top in terms of their rushing attempts, but it's always split and the guys are kind of capped. But we're getting this situation where these running backs are getting the lion's share of the workload. And when you look down to guys like JaMychal Hasty, unfortunately, they're just not usable in any way, shape, or form because the production really hasn't been there.
Yeah, there's no way you could use Hasty. I mean, it's going to be Wilson getting a lot of the touches. Debo will get some rushes as well. And that's it. And that's the one thing that we've seen from San Francisco when they're deploying their running backs this year. I mean, part of the reason, too, is they just haven't been able to keep these guys healthy. I mean, remember, it was Raheem Mostert early in the season. It seems like so long ago with him. But yeah, they've been generally when Elijah Mitchell has been in there, he's gotten huge workloads. Huge.
Yeah. Crazy. Up to 27 carries. It's wild from a San Francisco perspective. All right, guys, we've got about 5 more minutes left. I'm going to go in and jump to some questions as well. Sit one in standard between David Montgomery, Javonte Williams, Ezekiel Elliott, and Joe Mixon.
I think you need to wait on Mixon to see how healthy he is.
Yeah.
It might be Zeke.
Yeah, I think so too. It's so weird how that situation has moved forward with him. When Pollard is healthy, he looks great.
Zeke needs a touchdown to come through. That's the bottom line. If he doesn't score, he's not breaking long plays. He's not catching a ton of passes. This offense hasn't been great. So I would sit him. Yeah.
Let's do a little future jump here. Zeke has been a guy who's been a first-round draft pick. It's Zeke. That's what's happened. But, are you feeling that way about him moving forward next year when you're looking at your redraft leagues? Are you pushing him into the second round? Are you even willing to take him in the second round?
Probably not going to take him in the first round right now. Look, the thing with Zeke, he's playing with an injury. And there's a lot of players in the NFL who would sit down. The one thing I'll give him, he is tough. He doesn't want to come out. And, it always works both ways, right? Because if he sat out, people are like, oh, he's not tough. Why isn't he playing? Right? Now he's playing. Oh, well, he shouldn't be playing. Give Pollard the ball more. He's not healthy. So you can't win no matter what you do. But the guy exudes a ton of toughness. The offensive line has been the problem, though, this year, too. They're not run blocking well. It's just they're not as good run blocking as they have been in the past. Tyron Smith's missed time. So it's a lot of factors, but he is getting older. There is a lot of wear and tear on his body. So, yeah, it's hard to bank on him early in the draft next year.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. And let's see. We have... All right, I lost the question. All right, PPR, running back, need 2. Zeke, Mixon, Madison. I think I know where you're going there.
Madison and Mixon. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right, guys. And then let's see. Standard question. Brandon Ayuk, Monroe St. Brown, Michael Pittman, Van Jefferson.
How many? And
One.
It was standard.
Yep, standard. Mm-hmm.
I think I'm gonna go Pittman here. I think he bounces back this week.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I do. Yeah. Again, that situation between if Goff is actually going to play really greatly affects. So,
Yeah,
it's been interesting. I don't
wait,
know
it was Pittman, St. Brown, Van
Van
Jefferson,
Jefferson, who disappeared last week as well.
and Ayuk, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I would go Pittman. I think he bounces back.
Yeah. And then I saw one, Gabe, this one is interesting because I didn't mention this one just because which I should have, because I'm a Packers fan and because he has become fantasy relevant. Marquez Valdes-Scantling is on the COVID list as well. So maybe that bumps up Lazard in people's eyes. So I saw one between Lazard and Gabriel Davis.
You can't mess around with that Green Bay situation.
I agree. Let's see one more between AJ Brown. Do we start AJ Brown in PPR over Antonio Brown, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Russell Gage?
Yeah, I think you could start him over Brown. As you mentioned, with the Goff situation, we don't know. So I would start him.
And then Antonio Brown was in there. So how do you feel about Antonio Brown coming off? Because we don't know exactly what to expect here because, unfortunately we had the suspension. Was he ready to come back from an injury earlier? We don't 100% know if that's the case and how good his body is feeling right now.
I'm playing him. I have him in multiple leagues. I am playing him. Even if he's limited on certain snaps, I think they're going to have him on the field for critical situations. Brady loves him. That's the bottom line. We've seen it. Remember that one game he went to New England? Boom, scored a touchdown. Yes. So they have a good rapport. Brady wanted him. So I'm playing Antonio Brown. I have him ranked as a wide receiver 1. So I'm playing him.
Yeah. And then one more question here before we wrap up, guys. Need 4 in this grouping between the Austin Eckler or Justin Jackson, Madison, David Montgomery, CEH, or Javonte Williams.
Did we answer that one? Or how many did they say?
I think maybe, we did, but maybe, I think we answered it earlier. Maybe that there was maybe he logged off and didn't see.
So how many?
But I think we went with need 4 between that grouping. So 1, 2, 3. So let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I think it's a sit 1 situation in that grouping.
Okay, Eckler, Jackson, Madison, Montgomery. Who else?
CEH and Javonte.
If it's Jackson he plays, I'm sitting him. If Eckler's in, I'm sitting CEH.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. All right, guys, we have reached the top of the hour. And that means it's time for football. It is time to go ahead and go enjoy the 49ers and the Titans. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Again, this is our last Thursday night game because there are no more Thursday night games for us to cover. But make sure that you are staying up to date with Fantasy Alarm as we have many other live shows, many other videos, many other articles. There's so much content still available to carry you through the season and beyond. So again, please be sure to check that out and stay up to date with both Adam and I. And from Tara and Adam, we will catch you guys later. Have a fantastic second round.